The Echo of Light in the Shadows of Divided Realms. Chapter 5. Confronting the Night of Light. In the somber bustle of the abandoned palace hall, the dim blue light of the lamps seemed like a nail piercing the darkness. Stones crowded around them as if holding their breath, while the three stood before a massive iron gate, its echoes playing a shell game, repeating the sound at last. Knock, knock, knock. Felix's veins trembled as his chest fluttered with a faint regret. His eyes lingered on Kaelan Arkwright and Lana Roseville with a final yearning, as if silently asking, "Are we truly ready?" At that moment, time felt as if it were reversing. Felix turned his gaze toward the exposed ceiling, where storm clouds gathered and glimmered faintly in the distance. He closed his eyes for a moment, and the words fear and helplessness disappeared from his inner lexicon, replaced by the memory of a promise he made to his mother. "I swore I would return, and even if I must walk the path of death, I won't come back empty-handed." Lana found Kaelan's hand and held it gently, taking from its warmth a silent syllable of will. Her gaze turned to him, shining with question and resolve. "We cannot miss this chance. Destiny does not wait." Kaelan reached for the gate's lock, his lips trembling slightly. He took one last breath, then broke the silence with the pressure of a determined hand against the mute door. Let's open the gates and face the truth. As the gate groaned open with a shriek of torn metal, the trio entered the Hall of Bells, which stretched behind them like a memory. Above the hall was a narrow bridge, beneath which a deep chasm exhaled a faint throb, as if the sound echoed with the rhythm of their hearts. The way forward tightened around Felix's veins as he realized the path they had chosen echoed the growl of a beast poised to devour the last twigs of their hope. They saw before them a winding stone staircase leading to a vast chamber where no voice could rise beyond whispers of fear. Kaelan took the lead, climbing with steps like falling drops of blood between the stones. His eyes hesitated at the final push, for atop the edge lay a crumbling iron structure threatening collapse at the slightest misstep. Lana, watching the burdened features on Kaelan's face, whispered, "If you falter now, everything collapses." Felix's voice returned to their souls like an unfinished vow, as he said with trembling resolve, "We are all vulnerable to falling, but the true fear is being trapped." At last, they reached the hall. Moonlight streamed through a high window like molten blue light dancing on the cracked floor. At the center, beneath an arch of ancient stone, sat Lord Nether Sangwara on a throne adorned with carved faces, half charred, half fluttering with whispers of forgotten creatures. He opened his eyes slowly and gazed at them with a stern look devoid of mercy. "You've finally arrived." A surge of tension rushed through their veins like a raging river. Kaelan raised his small sword to chest level, his hand trembling between dread and defiance. Nether responded with a bitter smile. "Did you think you could sneak in without being noticed? You've already danced the final steps of a pre-written waltz." The moonlight cast their shadows like ghosts on the hall's walls. Lana stood gripping her dagger, her eyes lowered as they met Felix's gaze, each seeing the tragedy mirrored in the other's eyes. Now the moral paradox began to ferment. Before Nether stood staircases of choices devoid of mercy. His footsteps echoed toward them, his hand trailing regulated magical particles, green misty threads, as if light itself was collapsing inside him. Lana whispered as if bidding farewell to eternity. "All we wanted was to save the ones we loved. How did it come to this?" Nether turned to her with a toothy smile. "Because love, my dears, is your weakest link, and I've used my magic to peer into the secrets you hold." He drew a magical rifle from his side, emitting a violet spark that swirled through the chamber and formed a wall of light encircling Felix's veins, whose face was frozen in an upward pull. The trio realized he had become the game's fuel, his fate suspended on threads of cruel options. Which of them do you want to save? Those words fell like a knife, flaying their innermost membranes. Felix leaned back slightly, preparing for death, his final desire for life slipping across his features. His eyes filled with panic as he said, voice woven with sorrow, "I came here willingly. Take my freedom, but let Kaelan's sister live." Kaelan's expression changed suddenly. The colors drained from his face as the full weight of the moral dilemma struck him. Should he save his sister Nara, lost in some unknown place, or his friend, whose body and soul were being stolen before his eyes? A memory of Nara's voice flickered in his mind like a weak paper burning in an ancient fire. He didn't even know if she was still alive beneath the ruins. Kaelan finally spoke, voice strained with tension and grief. "If I weigh your life against my sister's, it might bring a greater disaster. Please, let your heart tremble with us." A tear escaped Felix's eye as he looked into his friend's eyes. "I'm ready, but what you're crafting here, it's more than this bound body can bear." Nathor Sengwara gave them a cunning smile and said slowly, "Very well. I'll give you two choices. Break the magical balance between life and death, and your name will be erased from noble records, while your sister is thrown into the dark dungeons. Choose her life, and Felix will have mere minutes before he loses his sanity." The moon retreated. The light faded in the depths of the chamber. It felt like a grave cradled their hearts in deadly stillness. Kaelan's eyes widened with a great delusion. Should he pursue a sister whose heartbeat he couldn't even confirm, or reach to save Felix, the last pillar beneath his feet? Waves of shock and inner screams crashed inside him, and the ground itself seemed to collapse, until he recalled their first confrontation with the valley's guardian, that moment when he cast aside his fear for his friend. He saw again the faces of the graveyard district's children, and in his chest ignited the flames of responsibility. Lana's face contorted, and Kaelan heard her ragged breathing. He too now grasped the tragedy crafted by a merciless fate. At last she said, voice broken, "We must be honest with ourselves. If we don't take this step, we'll swallow both bullets and magic." Kaelan stepped slowly toward Felix, placed his hand on his friend's tense shoulder, and whispered with resilience and defiance, "I've failed too long, but now it's time for redemption. I choose you, Felix. I'll bear the curse of the nobles and block the path of your magic." Felix lit up with a faint glow. He no longer felt the sorrow that had seeped into his years. His face bore one final expression of gratitude before releasing a trembling sound like a breath severed midway. Kaelan raised his sword toward Nathor Sengwara, his chest bent with regret and resolve alike. His heart pounded furiously, the veins in his neck pulsing stronger than before. "You may consume this body, but you'll never consume our spirit." Nathor didn't comprehend the words at first, but his regulated magic shook the hall as he surged forward, eyes flickering with a greedy hunger for power. His gaze met Kaelan's sword, weaving a dance of defiance, darkness, and light. Suddenly, movement, a swift strike from Kaelan toward Nathor's chest. The regulated magic blocked it with a blade of blue light carrying the glow of a dark past. Kaelan's sword vibrated madly in his hands, and a croak of pain emerged from his heart. He knew then he couldn't merge the nobles and the forgotten in one moment. If he kept fighting like this, it could lead to total annihilation across the kingdom. If he retreated, he'd let Felix die slowly, robbed of hope. His heart stopped suddenly. His sword slipped. Nethor caught him with one arm, smiling venomously. "You broke before even knowing why you fight." Lana stumbled in terror, and Felix's face showed resignation. But in a flash, Kaelan dropped to his knees and raised his hands to the sky, crying, "You hold a reservoir of terrified souls, but our blood cannot be erased. I chose you, Felix, because you're my friend, even if my sister remains in shadow forever." His words poured like tears into the walls of the palace. Nethor seemed affected. The atmosphere around him shifted. A small wall behind him shattered, revealing a narrow corridor, the hidden prison chamber where Nera had been held. Kaelan's face twisted in disbelief, joy, and sorrow. His silent prophecy had come true. Saving his friend saved him from internal ruin and proved his sister still lived. Lana looked up, despair fading from her eyes, replaced by a final explosion of hope. But the joy shattered in a mad instant when Nethor screamed, the magic itself breaking his voice. "I've captured your true soul and stripped you of choice." They now saw the terrible truth. His other hand held a dagger coated in dry blood, an instrument to deform souls. Before them, Kaelan's noble shield now reflected two scenes. A dagger poised to tear apart the worlds they had built, and a rope of light tightening on their hearts, dragging them toward the meanings of sacrifice and loyalty. The moral paradox had reached its peak. Kaelan's desire to remain loyal to his friend nearly cost him his sister. His yearning to save his sister nearly cost him his friend. Here, the ringing of bells in the palace ceased. A long silence echoed like the wail of a buried soul. The trio needed only one moment to decide. Will they remain silent forever under this tyranny, or rise against such cruel fate? Felix Ivanez shook his head violently. His face, in an instant, shifted from defeated to metallic resolve. His words exploded with ferocity and conviction. "You've won, for now, Sanguara, but you haven't stolen the one thing we still have, our spirit, which won't stop foreseeing or fighting for freedom." Nethor smiled coldly, raised his weapon toward his chest, when suddenly, behind him, a brilliant bloom light burst forth, a calling of fate. There stood Niravanez, freed from her rusted cell. Her light shimmered across her falling braids, and she stepped uncertainly into the hall. As her feet touched the ground, Nethor's magic trembled. His body began to show decay. Yes, Nira was the unforeseen key between the oppressed and the forsaken. Kaelan's eyes locked with hers, and when he saw her standing at the threshold, reaching for him, he made his final vow. "This darkness shall not last forever." Kaelan surged toward Nethor, rage and determination pulsing through his muscles. Lana followed without hesitation. Felix joined 2 steps behind, his eyes reignited with the glow of the dream.